Hi everyone, this is Mary. I hope everyone's having an awesome Monday so far. I am excited that you all have decided to join this group, and I'm looking forward to teaching everyone a little bit more about photography. I was thinking on Mondays, since I usually stay home with my girls on Mondays, that we could do a little mini Monday photography tutorial series, where on Mondays I can post like a little challenge for the week for you guys to work on. So I thought it would be good to start with composition, since I don't really know what kind of cameras anyone here is working with. So composition is something that you can do whether you're shooting on a cell phone camera or if you're shooting with a high-end DSLR. So we're going to talk a little bit about composition and rule of thirds. So I'm working in Lightroom right now. This is a pretty old picture. It's a picture of my daughter who just turned 1, but this was from her newborn session. And these are straight out of camera. They haven't been edited. Of course, a year after my child was born, I haven't edited her newborn photos, which is pretty typical of me. But poor photographers' children. I just want to show you, using rule of thirds, how we can keep that in mind when we're considering what kind of way we want to crop or shoot our image. So this image right here is not very interesting. I mean, of course she's adorable and the background's cute, but the way it's cropped, it's very in the center. It's not a very interesting crop at all. It doesn't really bring your eye towards anything. If I was shooting for a client, I might crop it this way because it would give me a lot of variety of how I could print this. If I want to print it on a canvas, I would have plenty of room to wrap around the edges. If I wanted to do an album, I would have lots of breathing room. But for my own personal work and for anything I would send to competition or anything like that, I would want to make sure that it was cropped appropriately. So I prefer to use rule of thirds. There's a lot of different rules that you can go by. Of course, I hate the word rules because it sounds like it's like a set in stone thing, and it's totally not, because you really have to take into consideration who your audience is when you're cropping. Most of my clients would prefer pictures of their family to be center cropped because they're probably going to hang them on their walls. They don't want to look like they're lopsided, everyone's off to one side. They like the center crop. But like I said, if you're going to submit an image to competition or anything like that, you really need to be using rule of thirds. So I'm editing this photo in Lightroom. Lightroom has a really great overlay that you can activate to help you with rule of thirds. And you go to that by choosing your crop tool up here, which is the little rectangle tool. And if I hit the O, I can cycle back and forth between my crop and rule of thirds. The way I would choose to see this rule of thirds grid is while my crop is activated here, I could go up into Tools, Crop Guide Overlay, and choose overlays to cycle. And here I'm going to choose my aspect ratios, which it's grayed out because it's already chosen, and thirds. You could also add in, golden ratio or any other rule that you want to try to follow. I like to use just the rule of thirds, so that's what I'm going to leave it at. I'm going to hit OK. So now I can toggle back and forth between my crop and my rule of thirds. So using rule of thirds, we want to try to put the most interesting part of our subject in one of these 4 crosshairs. There's here, 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 and here. And actually, let me grab this highlight tool, if I can ever figure out how to turn it on. There we go. Just to kind of show you a little bit more clearly. So here's a center of focus. Here's a center of focus. Here's a center of focus. Ooh, I don't know what, it decided to make a tiny little crop. And here's a center of focus. So those are the places that are that rule of thirds says are the most interesting place I can place my subject, I can put my subject so that when I'm looking at this image, it's aesthetically pleasing. So what I would do is I would hold down my shift key, and that would lock my crop. I don't know why my library module keeps blinking like this. It's really annoying. But I'm going to hold down my shift key to lock my crop, and then I can move it around until I find a place that I think is going to highlight my subject best by putting her little tiny face in one of those areas. So let's say we're aiming for her eye or the middle of her face. So rule of thirds is telling me that this is a much more interesting crop than I just had on. I'm going to shut this off because I think that might be why this is blinking. Yes, it is. I don't know why. So anyways, rule of thirds is telling me that this is the most interesting crop out of the other things I was looking at. So I can consider cropping my picture like this. It doesn't look that great, and it's just the way it was shot. This shot was just not meant to look very good in rule of thirds. It was very centered, it was very straight on. It just wasn't going to crop well. So one thing we can keep in mind is when we're shooting, we can keep our rule of thirds in our mind of how we want our subject to look in our final piece. So here is a much better scenario for the rule of thirds. I'm going to activate my crop to show that overlay. And now you can see this was straight out of camera, the way it was shot. But if I want to kind of crop in here, I have the perfect place that I can put her little face that will be right inside the rule of thirds. And it has this little thing that kind of brings your eye back down, and over here brings your eye up. So now, and her finger's so close to there, that would bother me. Bring it out a little. So now when I look at my image, this is a much more interesting image than this. It just is. This is cropped with rule of thirds. It's putting your subject right in one of those little crosshairs so that when you look at an image, your eye goes right to your subject and it's not like wandering around trying to figure out what the focal point of your image is. So that's pretty much it. That's rule of thirds. It's pretty simplistic. Your image divided up into 3 sections. Show you one more time. These little crosshairs are the most important sections. And just play around with different images and how you can kind of get your eye to flow. So thank you for joining me this week. I look forward to seeing all of your work, and I would love if you guys, whether you're using a cell phone or your camera, whatever you have, if you could take a shot and either crop it when you shoot right in camera or put it into your program like Lightroom and crop it. But whatever you want to do, oops, sorry, that's my phone. Whatever you want to do, if you guys could upload your images in the comments below in this Facebook group, I'd love to see them and get some constructive criticism back for everyone. And I think this will be a fun place to start. I look forward to working with everyone, and if you have any questions, please let me know. I'm excited to move forward. Thanks, guys. I hope you have a great week.